Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Committee of the Whole of the Fernie City Council, held at 6 p.m., 6:03 p.m. on June 20th, 2023. And we acknowledge that the City of Fernie is located within Kukanamakas, the unceded traditional territory of Yakitat. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakitat and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll call this meeting to order, and this meeting is being conducted by in-person and electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 2446. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the following direction, and that is, if the communication link to the specified place for this meeting is interrupted and cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting shall adjourn and reconvene to the soonest possible time the quorum can be achieved and public notice requirements met. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. I will now ask for a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda and any late items. Councillor McIsaac, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. And I will ask for a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of a Committee of the Whole meeting held on May 16th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Hampton, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. I'll now invite members of the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address City Council, except speakers must not address Council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to Council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address Council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to Council's consideration of issuance of the permit, and a speaker who wishes to take part in public participation by electronic means must have their proper name as their display name for participation, or provide their name if they're calling by phone. And a speaker may only address Council for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Sorry, Your Worship, Councillor Nixon is in the waiting room, so I would get him promoted before we.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. We'll welcome Councillor Nixon when he joins, but I will ask Ms. Bailey in the interim if there are folks online who have indicated they wish to speak, or people at the specified place.
I see one hand up online and no hands up at the specified place.
Okay, once we get Councillor Nixon in the loop here, we'll promote the person who wishes to speak.
Yeah, I'm just working to promote Councillor Nixon now. It's just taking some time.
Thank you. There he is. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Mayor Milligan.
We're not receiving any sound at the specified place.
He's not been promoted, the individual is still in the waiting list from what we can see.
Yeah, we haven't seen the individual on our screen here.
Okay, Troy, Councillor Nixon was promoted. He appears to have dropped off.
Yeah.
I no longer see him as an attendee.
Okay.
Okay, but perhaps, would it be appropriate to promote Mr. Chen in any event?
Promote him.
The individual who's got their hand up is Yuri Chen.
Oh, absolutely, please. Yeah, if we can promote Mr. Jannon, that would be helpful. Thank you. Councilor Nixon will call back in when he's available, or able, rather.
Sure, promoting now. Here we go.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Jannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Yuri Jamin. I'm the president of the Fernie Youth Soccer Association. I'm speaking on behalf of our board of directors and many of our members. So thank you very much for this opportunity to engage and to speak. Also, a very big thank you to city staff for the communication efforts over the last 3 weeks, I think, since the announcement of the proposed sale of Max Turk's Community Center. We found that engagement very timely and genuine. The flow of information between our members asking questions and city staff responding was quite helpful. Our board has reviewed, I guess, the proposed sale and the information provided back to our questions. And we do remain concerned. And I think that concern is reflected in the letter prepared or the report prepared by city staff. And we very much appreciate that. And we've taken time to delineate our concerns in a letter submitted by Fernie Youth Soccer Association through Let's Talk Fernie. And I hope council has had a chance, or councillors have a chance to read that letter that was submitted. I won't go through all of it, but what I will say is just that at its core, we're hoping that council takes a long-term view on the Max Turk Community Center and its ability to provide service and amenities to Fernie residents. At its heart, the value proposition of the sale, it appears to be more of a short-term gain, in the sense that we get a capital injection back into the city and opportunity to reduce operating costs associated with that facility. The view of the Fernie Youth Soccer is that this is really outweighed by the long-term risk to our user group and all the kids that take advantage of those fields and benefit in terms of learning how to play soccer, but also as growing as people and really growing into the kind of productive and caring residents that we hope to see in Fernie. And the challenge of the sale is that we might be able to protect the fields and maintain them and user groups for 10 years through the joint user agreement. But after that 10-year period, that the fields really are at risk. The priority of the school board, the French CSF, is to provide quality education for the residents or the students, not to provide soccer fields for.
Sorry, Mr. Jamin, very much appreciate your perspective, and thank you for taking the time to come and speak before council this evening, but I'll have to stop you there in terms of your time. So thank you very much for your input.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Take good care. And I'll go back to Ms. Bailey if there's anyone else online who's indicated an interest.
I see no other hands up online or at the specified place.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bailey, and if you don't mind keeping an eye out for Councillor Nixon, if he pops back on the screen, that would be wonderful.
Do.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to item number 6, delegations and other presentations, and we'll begin with a presentation from Staff Sergeant Sven Nielsen, who's here with us in person from our local RCMP detachment. Good evening.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, thank you for having me. Yeah, great to see you all again. Finally actually here in the community now, where I think the last time I spoke to you, I was actually not really here yet. So my family's moved in and we're all here, so it's great to be part of the community as a whole. So yeah, glad to come and present just some basic statistics that we have that just trying to get a feel for what you'd like to hear from us. But if you go to the next slide for me, please, Jeff.
I will, I'm just trying to actually get underneath the screen on top so I can actually start the slideshow.
No problem. Statistically, I can tell you that we are a bit down in the overall file count for the Fernie municipal area so far this year, which is a good thing, but not necessarily anything but just a normal sort of pattern that kind of falls across the board. For example, the Sparwood area is up a little bit, and so I believe is Alford as well. The majority of our files tend to come from like most detachment areas tend to come through traffic, although here is lesser than in some of the other areas where I work. I'm not sure why that is overall again, having been here only basically almost a year. My first year is up on July 1st. Brad, I think, has passed his
About 14 months.
14 months here, so, but overall, traffic generally is normally the #1 call for any detachment area. Here, we're down a little bit in my experience from the totals, but you see some of the totals there for the municipality being 273, where last year we were 275, so fairly consistent over the last couple of years, but obviously in the low 310s in the previous years before that. Some interesting statistics that the guys are working at. You'll see the break and entry totals are up now. That is just a scoring issue more than anything, so how we tend to treat that is for what we call CCJS scoring, so we get actual statistical information for what we do as a detachment. So when we have a break and enter number, as you can see, which is at 25, with the Elk Valley total being at 46, that's rather misleading overall, because when we go to an event, say we have an alarm at an office building or something, and we actually go to it, that's something where, in my opinion, we're doing work for, so we should get credit for. So you just see on the bottom there, I believe the 25, there's 18, I believe is the number of 17 or 18 that are actually false alarms on file. So we're actually at a much lower number, which is 7. I'm not sure exactly what the false alarm calls are, but we get called off on a lot of those.
Sorry, Steph,
Sure, go ahead.
I wonder if we could break that out into a separate item, because I think you're right. I think tracking it as work you're doing is important.
Sure.
You're getting called out, but because initially looking at that item, it was quite alarming.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I expected that comment, and you're right, I could probably break that down a little bit further for you, so you don't go, you know, and why are we having all these break and enters? Break and enters by themselves within our area, generally speaking, are rather abnormal. Even recent events up in Sparwood, for example, where they've been along Medevic Road in particular, we've been able to attribute now to essentially one particular group or one particular vehicle that was doing all that based upon some camera evidence that came in. However, for the majority of it, it's a very low level here, which is obviously a really good thing for the community, generally speaking. Sorry, I'm just gonna, theft of bicycles obviously isn't exactly a huge concern here. I know when Brad and I first got here, that's what we had thought, given the extent that bicycles are used in the community, and I'm not trying to do anything that's gonna dissuade that, but if you look at those numbers and the amount of money that get put into mountain biking here in particular, even road cycling, you'd expect at some point there'd be, but as you can tell, there really isn't. We've had one reported, well, in the last quarter from Fernie municipality. The theft of motor vehicles, theft from motor vehicles, I'm sorry, is just at one, so that's typically not much of a problem either as well. Vehicle accidents are very typical numbers for the area, and actually, in my experience, not as severe as I sort of expected, just because of all the additional traffic we receive, because of the different closures that are up in the other two areas along the Columbia Valley corridor. So really, actually kind of pleased about that overall. And, sorry, just, the impaired investigation. So one thing that Attachment does here quite well, are impaired investigations, whether they be straight criminal code, investigations, recently in particular, and normally, what the RCMP, what we normally do here anyway, if you have a first-time impaired driver that we stop and there's no previous history, you usually end up going the immediate roadside prohibition route for that, which is the provincial statutes that are available to us, which are quite penal and quite good in results to getting results and getting penalties against the driver for being impaired when they're driving. When they've had multiple incidents of IRPs or multiple instances of impaired driving over the years, we don't necessarily go that route. We end up going the criminal code route. In the last quarter, there's been quite a few of those actually. I think there's been upwards of 6, I think, in the last quarter, since the start of the year anyway, which is quite significant over the previous years. Obviously, just through the natural course of being out there on the road and stuff like that, your constables here are quite proactive, and they, in my opinion, they do an excellent job on the road and getting impaired drivers off the road. And we've obviously been working with our other community partners with those two as well, because it also indicates, to a certain extent, there might be like some over-service occurring in the community at various times or various institutes. So you'll see in the next slide, if you don't mind moving forward, Jeff, unless somebody's got questions about the statistical side, it's fairly straightforward. But if you end up dealing with other factors, so we have not necessarily a joint project, but we're helping the liquor inspectors in the community with a few of their investigations that are ongoing, and assisting them not only with space for interviews and stuff like that in the attachment, also just with minor directional stuff within their investigational flows for over-service primarily. So the members have been giving information. If you've had multiple impaired drivers, for example, that are found near a certain location, we end up feeding that information to the liquor inspector. The inspector goes and does their job effectively, and we bounce that back and forth. And that's been something that's been really developed lately within the concepts of trying to resolve the impaired driving thing, which at times, I mean, and it's unusual to hear this in an attachment, but it is a problem here. And it's something that, from a standpoint of, just generally speaking, for whatever reason, in some terms, multiple people have been caught, but one gentleman, I think we stopped 3 times, 3 or 4 times now. He's got 2 criminal cases against him at this point. So it is a problem. It is everywhere a problem, but here, for whatever reason, it does have a sense of elevation, and fortunately the team is very focused on that, and they're doing good work with that, to be frank. So, some of the other projects we've had that have come up, we've had, I call it the ACDC project. I'm not trying to insult Ms. Dickens at all, but it's just a name that the staff here had sort of thrown at me, and I've heard around the community. So we call it the ACDC project, working with the principal at the Isabella Dickens School, came up with the idea. We talked to her back in December, January. Brad and I had a conversation with her. We did some independent work over the few months and came up with a project for the team here, which is run by your Corporal Derek Rondeau, who's away on vacation, otherwise he would have been here tonight. But he's been running that. They've done an excellent job so far. They're very, very public presentation by us. So we're actually, one of the issues was the crosswalk safety for the students and the parents that are in that area. So we're actually doing crosswalk work as police officers, taking that over for a period in the morning and in the afternoon. And then obviously doing speed enforcement, whether that be just general static laser enforcement, which has been the most effective lately throughout the entire region that we've done, not only here at the UCDC project, but obviously right now, actually, they're doing it up in Elford as part of their speed enforcement project between Balmer and Alpine Lake up there. And just recently, actually, over the weekend, some of the guys were down early down at the construction site down in Elko, doing some speed enforcement down there with laser, and ended up getting quite a few people actually coming through there. So those are things that we're actively working on a lot.
Councilor Hammond.
Thank you. Is there any plan to do a similar blitz or program project around the academy and along 4th Street?
Certainly that is something we can look at. We haven't been approached by them, but one reason why we focused on the Isabella Dickens area was because we were approached directly by the principal, and not only Nick too as well, Michael back when I first got here, and actually brought up concerns about that, and people had concerns, so we went after that. Certainly we can apply the same thing over to that school, as we're not trying to generalize it to Isabella Dickens, it's just the approach we had at the time. But you can certainly see the value in that, and I think we're getting a lot of positive feedback from just being there, for what should be obvious reasons, I think, to everybody in the room or online. And, you know, it's been really well received, so, and we will continue to do it. They did it, I believe, yesterday. We try and average somewhere between 2 to 3 times a week. There are assigned times to it, they're not just, it's not just a project that we kind of say, hey, you know, we're gonna try and do it. We actually have assigned dates and times to it, and we try and follow through with that, so, but thank you, good idea.
Councilor Hammond.
If you don't mind me asking, through Mayor Milligan to yourself, also, some concerns were raised to me from the airport, Mountain View parents. There is busing there, and there have been some instances of people driving too fast and not stopping when the sign is out for the bus. And also, we've had some concern expressed to us from, I believe it would be Kato and Mount McLean, for young kids going to a coastal memorial at Maxter. People tend to drive pretty fast down Kato, and it's not as, what you say, visible of a crossing.
Yeah, no, 100%, and certainly, I mean, the school district is in usually weekly contact with us about issues with the buses pick up, for example, so I just saw one today, actually, I read about this today, where they've got their information come forward about the vehicle plate information, and obviously today, the majority of the buses have video now too as well, which play out very well in court for us, so those are things we use and sign files for, pretty much every time we get one of those particular messages in. But certainly, if you have a hot spot in the area that you feel is worth us spending some time at, by all means, we're willing to arrange to have that done as much as we can in the context of other events going on and planning, but if it's a community issue, that's something that's important to us, so absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions, sorry, on that? So we also have, something we're executing again, which I know has happened before, is the South Country patrols. We have the boat back, which is kind of nice. I know it's not necessarily a Fernie municipality thing, but obviously I know probably everybody in the room here uses that lake at some point. So that is something that we're reinstituting this year. We've gotten our vessel back from Cranbrook Detachment. We've got a scheduled one of those.
About 14 days in the water.
14 days on the water, and those have already been planned out. We have adequate boat operators here in the area. We've got assistance coming from Cranbrook too as well. We're trying to build a sharing proposition with that with Cranbrook RCMP, just because we share the lake as a property, and it's a good thing for us to go. Not only is it a break, to be honest, for our guys, right? You know, from being on the boat in the water is not exactly a hard day's duty, right? You know. And those are important things, but also it's just an enforcement aspect. Being out there, being visible, right, you know, I'm sure we'll get some impaired boating out there. Certainly we received those complaints last year, and being able to respond to those things, even on a long weekend, was troubling. So we looked after that through the course of the winter, and have gotten to the point now we don't quite have it in our clutches yet, but we are picking up this week, and they do start the following week, correct?
On, June 27th.
So yeah, so we're excited about that, and that'll be something that we're gonna build in the future too as well. As far as like having more active South Country patrols, not only on the water, but in the rural spaces too as well. So that's pretty cool. You can flip to the next slide. So, of interest to you, your staffing levels, we do have your municipal position 56135, which is a municipal position for you guys being filled. That isn't officially being filled until the 28th. Basically, it's when the 4 years is up for the member where they're currently stationed at. So literally the day when their 4th year turns is when his staffing actually being issued. So we anticipate him hopefully being here by September at the latest. Him and his wife and young family are gonna be coming to the area. We do have a provincial vacancy within the Fernie area, partially because of what's happening with our GIS position, our general investigative section, which works out of it's a provincial position, but it works out of your building here. Constable Catherine Chuck, she's moving on to Drayton Valley to be closer to family. So we have a very experienced member that is experienced, we call them experienced police officers, an EPO, who's been in the area now for the past several months. He's Constable Jeff McLean, and he applied for the position internally that we had outgoing for. We had a couple applicants for it, and he won the position, so he'll be moving over to that. So we're filling his position, and just actually today we received a notification of a hopeful candidate that might be able to fill that. So we're hopeful that that's going to be pretty solid, and we'll be in a good position to have both of those positions in place by September. So overall, from a staffing level, we're doing very well. In consideration to other provincial units, both Brad and myself have been very active that way, making sure we have the members that are being filled and that we're using to the advantage somewhat that the municipality here offers us for filling some of the vacancies we have. It is a benefit to have that, which I've had discussions with Nick and Michael is aware of too as well. So we're taking advantage of that, and so far so good. So overall, all the NCO positions are filled. We don't anticipate any movement with those for some time. All of them are relatively new. Obviously, myself, Brad, Derek are within the past, Brad's over the last year, but Derek and myself have just been here I've been about a year, and Derek's just about 7 months now. And then Janet's been here for a couple of years.
Yeah.
A couple of years now, and of course, you know Dan Hay quite well. Dan's been here for a while. He's been fishing in the community for a long time. We have no interest in him going anywhere unless he wants to. So very happy to have him with us. So overall, things are looking pretty good from Manpower side. We do obviously we had a vacancy on the provincial public servant side through Elford detachment. We had a position, we were able to fill it. Unfortunately, right now, the Alfred detachment is closed due to some internal issues that are going on there just within the building itself, nothing to do with personnel, but just with the building, which have also occurred in the past, which if you're familiar with those at all. But I will handle that, if you have questions about that, I will handle that on a one-to-one basis. But something that they've dealt with before, and we're just in the process of resolving that. So making sure the staff and health and safety measures are kept in place. So far, that's what we have. So, yeah, anybody have any questions?
Councillor Ali Kelly.
Just one more through Mayor Milligan. I was just curious about the mischief number for us. Is that,
as far as like the numbers that we have?
yeah,
I think it was at 11,
yeah.
I think, somewhere in there.
Is that like unusual, normal?
I would consider that, again, pardon me for my lack of experience on the total historical numbers. I didn't run the previous year, for example, to compare against it, and I should have, and I will do that next time, but it's not an overly high number. Those numbers are somewhat inflated too as well, based upon what we use, so at different times, you can qualify through a mischief offense just by one's example of lawful enjoyment of property. So if you're causing an issue, for example, at a residence, where necessarily there's not a criminal enforcement in there, but for example, we're trying to remove a person from there, or the person who owns the property wants to remove, and so that's a method for us to do that. So sometimes those are part of that without knowing the exact details of the file, but I'm going to guess that that's generally a lot of that, just because of the area in question, particularly with the local bar scene and stuff like that. Members will tend to fall back on that as a chargeable offense to use now, more so than say a cause disturbance offense, just because it's more weighted than say the disturbance charge. So it's not something that's unusual, and certainly not like we're not getting a lot of broken like glass calls, that sort of thing, if that's what you're thinking about. It's more to do with the lawful enjoyment issue that is ongoing at times in any community. So, and that's something that's driven probably over the last at least 8 to 10 years, where it sort of started to move that direction in use from a criminal code perspective. This is a chargeable offense. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Staff Sergeant Nielsen. That was very helpful, and we look forward to ongoing updates.
Happy to be here, happy to keep the conversation. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out. You guys know that, so.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much, thanks for having me, appreciate it.
Anytime. Right, thank you. That brings us along to item 6.2, presentation from the Fernie Heritage Cemetery Restoration Society. Patrick Burke and Barb Cossett. I think they're with Ms. Bailey at the specified place.
Okay, we're doing a presentation this evening
Oh, you can make.
of a virtual tour that we, drone tour that we created for the, for St. Mary's Cemetery, the historic section. It's a shortened version from 15 minutes or 15 minutes down to 10 minutes. And we'll start the video now, I hope. If it works.
Oh. Okay.
Please do this. Technical.
Technical
Interlude.
difficulties, yeah, here we go. That's what we want.
Can they hear it?
We can see it, thank you.
Okay,
The population came primarily from the British Isles, Eastern Europe, Italy, and China. Prevalent.
Sorry, council, I'm just gonna pause it for a second, confirm that you guys can hear the audio.
Well, it's very, very spotty. I think we're getting the audio not through the presentation, but rather through the specified place of the podium mic.
I think it's coming through. Yeah.
But there's a.
And now we have no audio, just so you're aware.
Mortality prevalent. Fernie was founded in 1887 as a coal mining.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah, so I can't mute only one.
Right?
Fernie was founded in 1887 as a coal mining town. The population came primarily from the British Isles, Eastern Europe, and China. It still has a significant number of descendants from these early families. Stillborn babies and infant mortality were prevalent. Some families suffered several instances of those losses. Too many young women died from childbearing causes. Large numbers of men were killed in the mining disasters of 1902 and 1917. Typhoid fever, cholera, the Spanish flu, and other diseases took their toll. The perseverance of these forebearers was strong enough to have laid a solid foundation for the Elk Valley to become and remain one of the most important mining economies in British Columbia. In 2022, the Fernie Heritage Cemetery Restoration Society created its virtual tour video of drone clips of Section 8 CD of the section of St. Margaret's Cemetery.
The Fernie Heritage Cemetery Restoration Society is pleased to present our website, www.fernieheritagecemetery.com, to help you search for relatives and loved ones. Our project started in 2006. I believe that's 17 years ago. From that date, we have made great progress with the cemetery restoration, data gathering, mapping, photographing, and record cross-referencing of the historic section of St. Margaret's Cemetery. The project continues in 2014 with GPS mapping and photographing of each stone in section A, B in 2016, C in 2017, D in 2018, which are all online. Work continues on cross-referencing, updating the website, cleaning, straightening of the monuments, initial cleaning and repairs of headstones by the Fernie Heritage Cemetery Restoration Society was completed in August of 2012. In 2020, we started over cleaning stones in section A, followed by section B, then C, and D. With the coming years, Fernie Heritage Cemetery Restoration Society was also involved in the cleanup and restoration of grave sites of World War II veterans in the Legion portion of the cemetery, successfully obtaining 33 stones for veterans from the DVA, Department of Veterans Affairs. In 2022, we created a virtual drone tour of the historic section of St. Margaret's Cemetery for those that cannot visit it in person. This was actually took about 300 hours and editing in that, and we're very pleased to present what we have here. This is a shortened version of section D, B, D, and A. We cut out section C that you can find on and watch on our website. There's a link. Thank you. You will notice in sections that the stones are fairly sparse. There's actually 1,875 unmarked graves in the Fernie Heritage Cemetery. Many of the graves were once marked with a wooden cross and deteriorated over time. You'll notice from time to time row markers and the little black signs that show you the section that you're in the row, which we feel helps people locate their family members in the cemetery.
We hope you find our virtual tour video of the old section of St. Margaret's Cemetery informative. This video was created for people that are unable to visit personally and for a historical record. The video is created by the Fernie Heritage Cemetery Restoration Society with a grant from Columbia Basin Trust, 2022-2023 Columbia Initiatives and Affected Areas Program within Regional District of East Kootenay. This video's droning video footage was created by Patrick Burke of Canskin Imaging in Fernie, BC. Editing and production was completed in conjunction with Patrick and Joe Ann Burke. Special thanks to Barbara Kosiak, president of the Fernie Heritage Cemetery Restoration Society, who worked tirelessly getting grants and support for this project and others. Thank you for members of the society and contributors in making our continued projects possible. Thanks also for the city of Fernie for a great job with upkeeping of the cemetery grounds. For more information on the old section of St. Margaret's Cemetery and on the Fernie Heritage Cemetery Restoration Society, or to contact us, please check our website at www.fernieheritagecemetery.com.
We'd like to thank the council for allowing us to present to this evening, and we hope you enjoyed it. As it's hard to enjoy cemeteries, but this is a very beautiful cemetery.
It is indeed. Thank you, Mr. Burke, and thank you, Ms. Gossick, for presenting that this evening. It is a beautiful place, and I think your footage captured it very well. So very much appreciate seeing that. Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you very much again for your presentation, and yeah, well done. It's as you say, it's a beautiful cemetery, and you've captured it well. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move along to item 7, business, and item 7.1, 2023 UBCM convention, a presentation from our corporate officer, McCall.
My presentation is much as a continuation of last week's discussion, Your Worship. The reports to council last week with respect to the meetings with the ministers at UBCM. Last week's report is attached, as well as a follow-up report, which I trust reflects the discussion that was held last week, where council asked to include all of the topics around the previous year, but for the RCMP services contract, I believe. So that is what is present before you, and I would ask that if council has other topics they wish to have discussed at those things, that we capture that tonight so that I can put it properly into the application.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Comments from council? Seeing no additions, I think that Do you require a resolution to advance that, or?
Could take a resolution to advance it, yes.
Okay.
We'll make a resolution to advance that.
Moved by Councilor Hamilton, seconded by Councilor Schuster. Thank you. Any further?
And I'll
Sorry.
just clarify the resolution that we request the meetings as are presented in the report.
Please. Thank you.
That's what I meant to say.
Well said, Kat.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Councilor McCausey.
Thank you, Worship. This is, I think, because we're sitting in the committee of the whole, I think it probably warrants a bit of discussion about the nature of this thing. I don't think it's relevant to the resolution that we passed, but I think it's relevant to the attendance at UBCM, and that one thing that was, I don't want to use the word challenging, perhaps there was a greater opportunity to expand on our messaging and communication. We're there, because not only do we have, there's an expectation that we'll deliver a written communication about what our concerns and asks are for each of the ministries and so on when we attend, but also in hopes we'll have face-to-face communications where we'll also have an opportunity to expound upon that. At those meetings, there are often fairly pointed questions asked. And the opportunity for, especially yourself, who the questions are directed to, but also to the other councillors that will be in attendance, good background and communication on each of these subjects. Perhaps we should even consider breaking them out for individual councillors to take on an area to work on, so that we're extremely well prepared when we show up. I know that there were a couple of meetings that I attended last time. There were some that I felt very well versed in. There were others that I didn't feel as versed in. It didn't feel like I contributed to the conversation as well as I would have liked. So I just wanted to bring up that we have some time, we have some opportunity to do some planning and some groundwork to make our best case there, and be worth some discussion, I think, about how we strategize towards that or achieve that. And I don't think, I'm not suggesting we have to do that at this meeting, but I'd like to have that on an agenda perhaps for another committee of the whole coming up before we get to UBCM.
I like that thinking, actually. Councilor Hamilton.
I would certainly support going that route of tasking ourselves and perhaps staff to put together a background or binder for each one of those meetings, so that walking into the meeting, we're all on the same page, or as Councilor McCausey suggests, we split it up so that we're not all having to consume all of the information, but we can, one or two of us can become the quote-unquote experts on the subject for that meeting. Because yeah, certainly in past years, having attended UBCM, there are some meetings where you have more experience, more understanding of the situation and background knowledge, and others where you're just going, I hope I'm not just a pretty face in this room.
Councilor Ramdas and Councilor McCausey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm willing to take mining ladder to the next. You wouldn't mind.
Councilor McCausey.
Thank you. And I did, the one thing I did want to add is, by the way, is that I felt that there was very good information provided by staff to support council for those things. It wasn't necessarily as well distributed for some of those meetings, and so that's part of the discussion that I'd like to have, is if we're going to try for all of us to know all of the things, or some of us to be experts in the things and others to be present for support. I just figure out what the strategy is going to be.
Yeah, I think that's prudent in any kind of circumstance like this, and I think a lot of that information, as Mr. Bowanowski and Director Lennox, for example, would know, is already exists in briefing notes we've seen as council.
Indeed.
It would be nice to amass some of those in advance, so as you say, we're all well versed, and some of us are better versed than others, so that we can speak to it more directly.
And just as an additional comment to that, also perhaps having a bit of a group discussion, whether it's a committee of the whole or elsewhere, about what our team strategy is for UBCM, because a lot of the times it's just not going to be possible for everybody to be in all of the meetings, and if everybody wants to be in all the meetings, well, that means that something else is going to get missed out.
Fair.
So having a bit of a group discussion about, you're going to you and you were gonna go into this meeting and you were gonna go sit into that session and figuring out how we divide and conquer, because there's a lot happening and we can't be everywhere at once.
Which compels me to ask, how far in advance do we know when all these various meetings are scheduled so that we can develop that strategy and ensure that people, we get the most coverage possible? You have a sense of that?
If I may, Your Worship, what we do with respect to these meetings, the deadline for the ministerial meetings is the end of June.
Yeah.
And such that when the deadline for the staff meetings is into August. So by then, we generally know which ministerial meetings we've been granted. So we'll have a better feel for that. And Mr. Bornowski and I can certainly talk about when we can set up this kind of a dialogue to ensure that not only do you have the package materials, but you've had a chance to review them together in the team.
Yeah, and we've identified who in which meeting will be the spokesperson, because that is useful. To your point, certain people are essentially subject matter experts on them and can speak directly to the issue, and others can support. I like that thinking. We'll have to let's plan that process then.
Yeah, we've noted it together to have that dialogue and make sure that we set that up.
Excellent, thank you. Any further discussion on this item?
We may or may not know at this stage, but are they doing fire ops again at UBCM?
Well, it's interesting you should ask, because I was participated in the Ride for Mental Health on the weekend and saw Corey Robinson at the barbecue and received an invitation, a personal invitation from firefighter Robinson to participate in fire ops. So
perfect. So I was going to recommend, if we've got the opportunity to take more than one council member, somebody else should jump on it.
He did suggest one or two from council for sure. And I don't know, I perhaps full-heartedly, I did volunteer. So if someone wants to join me, happy to drag a second victim in.
Sounds like fun.
Doesn't it? Oh, yeah. He had a certain gleam in his eye when he was saying, firefighter Rob said how much fun it would be. I was, so yeah, absolutely, we are doing it. Excellent. That moves us along to item 7.2, a presentation from our CAO, Mr. Bornowski, on MaxSurf and community feedback.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, it's not directly a presentation, but it is a report, which I will speak to briefly. And then, of course, I'm available along with other staff on the call to respond to questions. Starting in, I'd like to thank Mr. Jamin for recognizing the work staff undertook on communications. Specifically, I need to recognize Ms. Liz Rhodes for her work on communications and consultation, and Director Jansen specifically for helping pull together the reports and frame this material adequately to support effective dialogue with the public, and then to bring back the responses to council. Those two have done fantastic work, in my opinion, so I wanted to recognize them. For this public consultation, we undertook a consult level on the IAP2, or International Association for Public Participation framework. That's to obtain feedback and analysis, to obtain public feedback on the decision, to keep people informed, listen to and acknowledge concerns, and provide feedback on how that public input would influence the decision, which is this evening, receiving that formally and then providing feedback on how it is influencing your decision should you seek to advance it. This report is to provide that consultation feedback for council and create a space for your dialogue, discussion, any questions you have. Immediately following this meeting, should you need it, we have scheduled and advertised a special meeting of council, where council then has the appropriate duly constituted meeting where they can provide decision by formal resolution rather than as committee providing direction. That's why we have this two-step process. what I wanted to recognize is that we launched both an in-person and online public consultation starting on May 25th online, and on June 6th holding the in-person open house or information session at the Senior Center. Online at Let's Talk Fernie, we received a little over 1,200 visits. 851 of those visitors or visits viewed at least one page. We would call those aware of the project. 278 of those would be considered informed, meaning they visited more than one page on the project site or downloaded a document. And then just over 104 actually contributed to a tool by asking a question or providing feedback. We also, in addition to that, received 77 emails to Let's Talk Fernie, or Let's Talk at Fernie.ca. And together with the feedback from the open house, the written responses, the emails have been provided as raw data for council because there is some personally identifiable information there. And specifically at the open house, a number of people did express concerns that because of their roles, public or otherwise, in the community, they would prefer to have that feedback provided in confidence. What we have provided, attached to this report and fully published online, are the 80 questions and answers that were asked by 73 individuals, and the formal communications from tenants, associations, user groups, and other community boards who provided formal communications to council as part of this report. At the open house, we estimate between 80 and 120 individuals attended, and in general, if I can summarize the themes from online and in person, there is a strong theme of concern regarding the sale, with a smaller group who are in support of the sale conceptually, noting that the school district, if there was a sale, could be one of the ideal purchasers of that facility, as it is a public-to-public transaction. However, by and large, the feedback received online, in email, and in person was significantly opposed to consideration of the disposition. Online, that was just under 80% specifically negative towards the consideration, with another 5.6 as mixed, small amount neutral, and then 4 of the comments that were supportive of the 73 responses overall. We have in the report summarized the general themes through the feedback after staff reviewed all of the submissions and highlighted those as themes, tried to consolidate them as best we could for council, and we're here to support council in their dialogue at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barlowski. Comments from council? Appreciating we have a special meeting following this to discuss it even further, but would folks like to raise comments now?
Yeah, I want to thank the community for coming out and being engaged in this process. I know through the election period there was a lot of talk that the previous council wasn't engaged with the community. But I'm happy that we're in a space now where we can have this two-way dialogue.
Thank you, I very much appreciate that comment, because it was one I would echo, that I was very appreciative of not just the number of attendants, but the amount of engagement in conversation and respectful dialogue and questions, and it was very useful. Councilor Artie Kelly.
I'd like to echo that too, and to all the folks that reached out. I had people reach out to me personally, I'm sure you all did as well. It's really actually very heartening to see how engaged folks are in our community and how much they care. That's been something that's really made me feel better. I've lost a lot of sleep over this, and so I'm glad to see that people in the community really genuinely care. And I just want to make a pitch that OCP, Official Community Plan Review, is coming up, and it would be wonderful to see this level and even more level of engagement in the long-term planning for the community and 7th-generation thinking.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Extremely well said, Councilor Artie Kelly. I was very appreciative of the feedback that I received. I also would like to echo the compliments for the staff for the excellent presentation and communication, both to the public and myself. I really do think that our having the communications role has been extremely beneficial, and the public participation framework is proving its worth in giving us very good guidance about how we're going down that road to improve our communication with the public. I think it's demonstrated its worth and that we've received a lot of communication back. That's been extremely positive, and I really want to echo Councillor Adia Kelly's comments with regards to the OCP. It can be very easy for people to get very excited about something like a soccer pitch, which they're using 2 or 3 times a week, but less easy to get excited about the sewer system that's running down the side of the road. But it is, by almost every measure, more important. The soccer pitch stops working, it'll be uncomfortable, but if the sewage stops working, it will be more than uncomfortable. So I'm hoping that people will be as excited about the many assets and services that go on in the community and not just be focused specifically on that. And I have other comments that I'd like to make about this stuff, but I'll wait for them specifically.
Thank you. Councillor Ramanat, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. Not to forget tax public engagement that we also had, right? Hoping that we will have the same kind of turnout in 2024 when we have that opportunity as well. We had about 17 people as compared to 105 here.
Yeah.
I was just going to actually say the same thing. You know, it would be great to see this engagement ball continue rolling as we've just released our annual report, and you know, while the iron's hot, get back in there and start giving some feedback on that. And let's remember that engagement and communication is a two-way street, and we can, as a council, we can only engage with and respond to the responses that we receive from the community.
Yeah, thank you. And newly minted with page numbers. Councillor Schuster.
Yeah, Your Worship, I definitely feel that I know a lot more and have a lot more awareness coming out of the engagement session than I did going in. And I would like to thank everybody that, even though they are quite upset, managed to be very, very civil and cordial about communicating things. I think that's a really healthy process.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Nixon. I see his hand is up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to echo all the same comments that our previous councillors have said. But one of the questions I had was maybe for Director Burdett. And apologies that I'm not there tonight. I had a bit of a day today, but not as bad as some other people in this world, that's for sure. But one of the things that was sort of bandied around was the fact that if we can get some clarification on our reserves over the last few years. I know that it's a common, I was talking to people in the last few days and they had mentioned that we're only selling this facility because we are broke. And I just want, you know, I mean, if we can clarify that, if Director Burdick can maybe state the level of our reserves at this point and how much reserves that we're putting in this year, that would be great. As well, another question maybe for Director Jansen is I'm just wondering what our overall infrastructure deficit is, and if that's if it's 67 million as presented in the staff in the presentation, or does that number include our sewage waste management plant? So two questions there. Thank you.
Given that Director Burdett isn't here, Mr. Baranowski, can you speak to that, or?
If I can, Your Worship, we could check with staff at the specified place, although they were facilitating participation. But without Mr. Burdick here, I would ask and would be happy to pull that information and prepare a clarifying small article that we put on the website and provide publicly and to council to clarify, because we do maintain contributions to reserves. That contribution has been, as was determined by council, reduced to make a short-term loan payment to complete the financing for the public works facility or our ops building. But we do have regular contributions to reserves, and reserves do follow a sawtooth pattern where you build them up to a level and then you deplete them to deliver projects. And my comment would be that public works facility, streets, investment in the arena, those are examples of where those reserves were used and leveraged to enable the capital program. But I would request, Mr. Burdett and I are likely able to provide a communication if our deputy director is not able to provide something clear and useful at the moment, but I do see their hand up.
Deputy Director Cook.
Your worship, through to Councillor Nixon. I was going to offer my support, but CAO Boranowski has answered it pretty thoroughly. I can, if you still have additional questions, come back with some more information if you like, if you give me a minute to pull those numbers for you.
Thank you, Deputy Director. And there was a second question to Director Jansen, if you're prepared to answer it.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Nixon. The most recent comprehensive study that we did on our infrastructure deficit was in 2018, and that is a $67 million figure. We're working to update that, and so it currently doesn't include the wastewater treatment facility. And also working this year with Finance and Director Burdett on a more complete long-term capital program so that we can better inform what those reserve contributions need to be over the long term.
Thank you, Director Jansen. Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Councillor Ronnie Kelly.
Through Mayor Milligan, I just wanted to say to folks that are watching, we are committed, I hope I can say that, to moving across the street to in-person meetings, and we apologize that it's taking a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but I just wanted to assure people that this council is really, we care about public engagement, and we are planning to move over, and I hope when we do that we see a lot of your faces in council chambers.
Thank you. Councillor Rabbit, yeah.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yeah, from my perspective, oh, sorry, Councillor, go ahead. Go ahead.
I did have one question. Did I just not see any public communication from the school district, or was there none during this process from SD 93?
I wasn't aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
And from my perspective, yeah, I would only echo all the comments that have already been made in terms of the amount of engagement, the quality of engagement, the work that staff did putting it together, and the participation of all of you at that evening. I think it was very valuable for us as a council and for the community as a whole, particularly those folks concerned about this project. So thank you very much for that. Okay, seeing no more questions or discussion, we'll move on to item 8.1, correspondence, or item 8, correspondence, item 8.1. Any comments, questions, observations about the Columbia River Treaty Interim Revenue Sharing Agreements as provided? No, seeing none. It was more of an information piece shared by the negotiations. Thank you. With that, we'll adjourn the committee of the whole, and we'll take a 10-minute break if folks are comfortable with that. And we will reconvene for the special meeting after 10 minutes. So thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us.
The microphone's on.
We're ready to go, Ms. Bailey, whenever you are. I'm assuming that's us live now? Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're correct.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. And thank you for all your support through this. Welcome to the special meeting of council, held at council chambers at 7:24 p.m. on June 20th, 2023. And once again, we acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukitamakas, the unceded traditional territory of the Akanakakliat, and we recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from the Akanakakliat and are members of the Tanaha-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for a mover and seconder of the following recommendation: that if communication linked to the specified place for this meeting is interrupted and cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting shall adjourn and reconvene as soon as possible time and quorum can be achieved and public notice requirements met. And I apologize because I should have said this meeting is being conducted by electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 2446. So, for the recommendation, Councilor Ramadas, seconded by Councilor Audie Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. And I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda. Moved by Councilor Audie Kelly, seconded by Councilor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All in favor? Again, that's unanimous, thank you. Which brings us to item number 4, staff reports. Consideration of the disposition of Maxter Community Center, a report from our CAO, Mr. Bownowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report, as I mentioned previously, is provided to provide the general information as provided to the public and to council on the potential disposition that is in front of council for consideration. As well, it provides highlights from our highest level strategic plans and official community plan documents, so that those are consolidated in one place for council. I did want to speak to council's question, as was asked in the committee of the whole meeting, specific to reserves. We, as part of our budget process, do publish a poster on our 5-year plan and contributions to reserves. I think it's valuable to note that our opening balance budgeted for the beginning of 2023 was just north of $14 million. It was $14,370,000 approximately. We do contribute to those reserves annually, and in our current 5-year plan, do project maintaining a reserve balance at the end of each fiscal year above a $10 million baseline across our reserves. And I think that's probably valuable context. We will republish the reserve information online on our website following the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do not have a presentation on this report for council. It is provided as a covering report to highlight the strategic plan, official community plan comments, asset management policy, financial considerations, and provide options for council consideration. In light of the public feedback gathered, though, through the consultation and directly from tenants and stakeholders, at this point, staff are not able to recommend advancing the disposition of the facility as it is currently proposed. My one note for context is council is aware there were some funds set aside for an architectural review or initial review of our aquatic center. Those are being used to prepare some initial sketch plans that then create a foundation for broader consultation on a community center at that site, which is a recommended consideration in a number of plans. And so you will anticipate, or you can anticipate, seeing a proposal for the 2024 fiscal to do some deeper planning around a community center and what amenities are required, at what cost, to advance that discussion in a meaningful way.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you.
Councilor Audie Kelly.
I'm just going to dive in here. I'd like to motion that we resolve to conclude the consideration and not advance the potential disposition of the facility. I think we've heard from the community. I think that despite the very valiant efforts of Mayor Milligan, Galloway. The community felt not heard about that. I think we've heard loud and clear from the community that they don't want this. I also think that it may be premature because of the OCP and also the real estate strategy and the asset management strategy. So I think at this time, I think we should conclude and not if that's the reasoning for my motion.
Thank you. Councilor Kelly.
Oh, I would second that.
Discussion.
I support the motion, with the caveat that I think the engagement was extremely robust and extremely valuable. And as we discussed earlier in committee of the whole, I think that the community needs to really understand the importance of being engaged and really understanding not only the value system that our community as a whole has towards the different services that the city provides, but also really dives into understand the infrastructure issues that we are grappling with. That soccer, as Councilor McIsaac said earlier, soccer fields are great. If they stop working, it'll be an inconvenience. Sewage system, water systems, protective services, like all of these things are the function of what the city's services to the community, are the backbone of our community. And if we don't have the funding mechanisms, if we don't have the dollars in reserves or the grant opportunities from other levels of government to do this, the money needs to come from somewhere. And so getting involved, making sure you're engaged with the OCP, with the annual reports, with our budget process, we need that feedback in order to make good decisions. And even if you're against something, or whether you're against or for something, it shouldn't matter. You should be vocal about it and make sure that you share your thoughts with us as a council.
I appreciate that perspective. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I feel we still face a lot of problems as a town, mostly maintenance related and somewhat capital related, although as we've just heard, we're actually in fairly good standing at the moment. I feel that this agreement, were to go through with the intention of helping to solve some of those problems, wouldn't actually make any appreciable progress towards that. Although I would still say we definitely need to be addressing some of those problems for the town. This just isn't the way to do it.
Thank you. Councilor Roundhouse.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in terms of some of the positives that we can get from asset disposition is simplification of our operations. You know, there will be a control on operating expense. I think there are still some valuable things that we can do with disposing of assets. But again, my view is disposition at the right price. And I think that was also loud and clear from a cross-section of our citizens. That the price that was quoted was probably not the right price. And further to that, something that I have been thinking, Your Worship, is probably the skill set required within our city for actually doing commercial transaction needs to be bolstered. I think we relied on external assessors. I know that's probably the standard fare in municipality, but knowing fully well that real estate prices have appreciated so much in the last few years, and we've all been in this community for several years, knowing the trajectory at which it is going here, the future value is going to be greater than the past many times. And knowing fully well, I just feel like we just need to improve our game plan when it comes to valuing our assets.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be echoing a comment we've heard already this evening from the previous meeting is taking the long view and coming up with a long-term strategy that incorporates many of the things that we've all touched on this evening. Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective as well. Councilor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. I made a few notes, so I apologize if I go on at length.
You have 10 minutes.
Plenty of time. I have a number of comments that I wanted to make, and I'm going to start with the fact that I liked the opportunity that was presented. I do think that Max Turk space is already serving a very high purpose in our community, and as evidenced by the communication we received, most people in our community, I think, I believe that to be true. I felt that a sale to the school board had the potential to retain most, if not all, of that high purpose. I thought that was very valuable. The proposed long-term joint use agreement, similar to what we have with School District 5, encouraged me that the usages could be maintained there. I still have concerns regarding the operational cost of annual maintenance with regard to that property. Works out to about $175,000 a year. That's a big chunk of change. That's 2% of our last tax rate increase. Now, I'm not begrudging the money that we're spending there, but I do think it's important to acknowledge it. If we combine that with the likely significant costs to maintaining that aging building in its construction over the next decade, it is going to be a non-trivial bit of money. This is important to note because every dollar we spend there is a dollar we are not spending on another asset or another service. It needs to be important, and we need to hear that from the community. I think we did hear from the community right now that it is important to them. I hope we continue to hear that in the OCP, because that is where they're presented with the opportunity to contrast and compare all of the services and assets that we have and tell us what is important to the community. I think one of the challenges that we had is we discovered in the last council that we have been presented with $67 million in infrastructure debt. This came up in the last meeting as well. The knowledge of that and what that means in our community has made me hypersensitive to the cost of assets and its ongoing thing. The work that staff has been doing, the council has been doing, and this council is now doing on asset management, especially when we start to consider the long-term cost of things, not just the purchase price, not just the sale price, but the ongoing, the staff time, the maintenance costs, the ongoing operational costs, et cetera. When we start adding up all those dollars, everything is expensive. There is nothing that's cheap. So I'm consciously aware of it. It is taxpayer money. It's primarily residential tax dollars that we are spending on all of these things. If we are not attentive to that, the taxpayer is going to let us know. Okay. One of the things that I think was really important to me when I was hearing was that a lot of the feedback from the public was expressed concern about the potential buyer's mandate. Were they going to have the same care for the same issues about that particular piece of property that the city has had? And I think that's a fair concern because I don't think there was any communication to offset that. Maybe that's a missed opportunity from the school district. Maybe that's something that they might consider if they're, whether it's here or somewhere else that they're communicating in the future. I think the public here needs to know very clearly what specifically their mandate, what they're going to be supporting and what they might not support in the future. For the most part, I felt it was very positive, but the one thing that kept coming that I think really rang the bell for me was the childcare discussion. I'm sure all of you heard the same discussions that I heard regarding childcare, and specifically the concerns about changes in leasing, where the way the provincial government is funding daycare right now probably won't accommodate triple net style leasing, because it's not as easy to do predictable budgeting. That's a real concern. The fact that if the school grows, that there might not be sufficient room for daycare there. We've been at a crisis situation in daycare in our community for a long time, and it's likely to be that way for a while. It is extremely difficult to put even one of those spaces at risk, considering the length of the waiting list that all of those organizations that are over there have right now. That to me, I think, was the thing that really swayed me. That was the one that I was really uncomfortable taking any risk with. Other stuff, I think I would have been a lot more comfortable with. So Having said all of that, and I apologize for taking all the time, but these were things that I was thinking about quite a bit. I'm going to support the motion. I feel like there's just a few pieces in the puzzle that didn't get there, and if we were to consider this in the future, I want to see them there before we move forward on. Thanks for that.
No, and I very much appreciate the perspective. It's very thoughtful, and I think your comments about the cost of things, we as an organization, and we don't need to bang on about it, but we need to ensure that our constituents appreciate it, because there are great things in this community, and we deliver great services, but there are challenges with that services, and it's important that people understand that. And I think that's a very important consideration. So thank you for raising it.
Thank you. May I make one final further point about that, please? And that's just that I think it's very important for the community to know that we're extremely open about this information. All of the information about what our reserves are and what we are spending money on is widely publicized. You do not need to go to Facebook to find out how much money we have. Please don't do that. It will be inaccurate. Please go to the source. It's out there. Thank you.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. Let me take down my hand here. Yes, don't go to Facebook for information. And actually, there's even some print publications that you should be wary of as well. First off, I want to say thanks to the community, like we did in the previous meeting, for being so engaged on this topic. As a reminder to the community, we did not solicit this sale. This sale came to us, and we are not broke. We do have a lot of facilities that we manage, including the senior center, the visitor information center, the community center, the arena, the curling rink, the courthouse, museum, art station, Max Turek. All of these facilities are under our budget and on the budget of the Fernie taxpayer. So when this, I'll agree with Councillor McIsaac, when this sale came up a while ago, it looked like it was promising for me, and but as we know, the concerns, and I'm super happy that we went out to the public and we engaged with the public, because now we know how important this facility is to the community. I'll be voting for the motion, for Councillor Adia Kelly's motion tonight. I am against the sale of Max Turek in the current form, and I'm going to support the staff. I do have some other concerns as well in regards to this facility, and it's about the sale of this facility, and I'm nervous about the lack of engagement from SD 93. I already said this, but I'm going to say it again. It's obvious that our community is in love with this facility. The fields, the pickleball courts, the childcare facilities, it's absolutely essential. And third, this is a big chunk of land to sell. And while we don't have a full, robust view, overall view of all of our facilities, I think we need to determine that and look at it as strategy. So that's all I have to say tonight. And thank you to our community again for the engagement.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Councillor Ramdas, did you have
I did have a question, Your Worship, more to CEO Bornowski, if you may. CEO Bornowski, like, what was the biggest learning for the staff out of this entire engagement? I know that you clearly stated in the report in terms of few challenges, but is there anything that was a surprise for you?
That's a very, very good question. The largest learning for staff, for myself, I can't speak, but many people worked on the project in different ways. for myself was clarity and process early on, and clarity on intended outcomes early on. Because we did have a discussion following a Supreme Court decision, discussion on whether there was interest or not, and it grew from there. We were walking down a specific path with there's an anchor tenant, it is operating substantially as a school. If they want to secure that long-term, this is one path. What does that look like? It didn't do what you described a little bit, Councillor, in terms of looking at revenue optimization rather than optimizing for a sort of agreed shared benefit. And I think providing a master strategy for how to approach these in the future and value statements on what we're trying to achieve to ground ourselves in every time we go out with a discussion like this, and being very transparent at the very outset with the community would benefit us significantly in any future moves. I think your comments about a robust process, knowing exactly what we're trying to achieve, whether that is profit or community benefit or a simple streamlining of operations, but knowing and articulating that at the outset would help us achieve a specific outcome rather than perhaps not quite achieve any specific outcome and water them down a bit. If that's fair, Your Worship?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Go down.
Just a bit of a follow-up question. Would articulating those value statements be something that could be incorporated into your OCP process?
Your Worship, if I can.
Yeah, please.
Almost anything can be articulated as part of an OCP process. I think realistically in council's strategic direction and vision and values, that inspiring an update to a lands acquisition disposition policy that sets out this is why we acquire lands, this is why we dispose of them and how. Mr. McConnell and I have been consulting with a number of larger scale municipalities on how they are handling land development, generally through arm reach corporations, DevCorps, or departments that are delegated the authority to acquire and dispose of land to advance specific outcomes, but it is to advance policy objectives. One of those is revenue, one of those will be securing land for infrastructure, one of those may be securing land for future rec development, one of those may be disposing of surplus lands to spur development. So having that articulated, whether it's in an OCP or a strategy document, is possible. I don't know. I don't know quite at what point Mr. Lennox and the OCP team would recommend making the OCP the everything omnibus document versus making sure that it is manageable and achievable.
Yeah, and to that end, potentially informs a disposition strategy. You know, the visions and values of the community therefore inform that strategy. And I, you know, once again, I want to thank council for your thoughtful deliberation on this matter. Again, I have to echo Mr. Jamin's comment earlier about, and I think beautifully articulated by Councilor Ramadas about the long-term vision and strategy that not only looks at our lands and their value in an economic equation, but in a social equation, which to Councillor McIsaac's point, there is a significant social risk with the sale of this facility at this time. And I don't think that's a risk I'm willing to take. You know, loss of one childcare space is one childcare space too many in this community. So yeah, I very much appreciate council's position on this, and with that, I'll call the vote.
Before you call the vote, Your Worship, if I may confirm the exact resolution for wording for the minutes of the, and I have that would be that council directs staff to conclude consideration of the sale of Max Turk Community Center and not advance the potential disposition of the facility. Does that sound right?
It does.
Thank you.
So we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. I very much appreciate your input. And as always with this council, great discussion. I really appreciate it. Very thoughtful group, so thank you. I want to thank everybody who's joined us this evening. And sorry, Councillor Audie Kelly, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, Mayor Milligan, that as chair, I'm not gonna articulate this well, but I really appreciate how you give opportunity to everybody to be heard. I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I signed up for, so I'm grateful for this group that makes that valuable, so thank you very much. With that, we shall conclude business and call the meeting adjourned. And thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yes.